For prudence, either that of the ancients, is inferior unto the modern, which we have hitherto been setting face to face, that any one may judge, or that of the royalists must be inferior unto that prudence of the commonwealthsman. And for interest, taking the commonwealthsman to have really intended the public, for otherwise he is an hypocrite, and the worst of men. That of the royalist must of necessity have been more private, wherefore the whole dispute will come upon matter of conscience. And this, whether it be urged by the right of kings, the obligation of former laws, or of the oath of allegiance, is absolved by the balance. For if the right of kings were as immediately derived from the breath of God as the life of man, yet this excludeth not death and dissolution, but that the dissolution of the late monarchy was as natural as the death of a man hath been already shown. Wherefore it remains with the royalists to discover by what reason or experience it is possible for the monarchy to stand upon a popular balance, or the balance being popular, as well the oath of allegiance as all other monarchical laws, simply an impossibility, and are therefore void. To the commonwealthman, I have no more to say, but that if he exclude any party, he is not truly such, nor shall ever found a commonwealth upon the natural principle of the same, which is justice. And the royalist, for having opposed a commonwealth in Oceana, where the laws were so ambiguous that they might be eternally disputed and never reconciled, can neither be justly for that cause excluded from his full and equal share in the government, nor prudently for this, that a commonwealth consisting of a party will be in perpetual labor of her own destruction, whence it was that the Romans, having conquered the Albans, incorporated them with equal right into the commonwealth. And if the royalists be flesh of your flesh, and nearer of blood than were the Albans to the Romans, you are also Christians. Nevertheless, there is no reason that a commonwealth should any more favor a party remaining in fixed opposition against her than Brutus did his sons. But if she fix them upon that opposition, it is her fault, not theirs, and this is done by excluding them. Men that have equal possessions and the same security of their estates and of their liberties that you have the same cause with you to defend. But if you will be trampling, they fight for liberty, though for monarchy, and you for tyranny, though under the name of a commonwealth. The nature of orders is a commonwealth rightly instituted, being void of all jealousy, because let the parties which she embraceth be what they will, her orders are such as they neither would resist if they could, nor could if they would, as hath in part been already shown, and will appear more at large by the ensuing model. The parties that are spiritual are of more kinds than I need mention, some for a national religion, and others for liberty of conscience, with such animosity on both sides, as if these two did not consist, of which I have already sufficiently spoken, to show that the one cannot well consist without the other. But they of all the rest are the most dangerous, who, holding that the saints must govern, go about to reduce the commonwealth unto a party, as well for the reasons already shown, as that their pretenses are against Scripture, which the saints are commanded to submit unto the higher powers, and be subject unto the ordinance of man. And that men, pretending under the notion of saints or religion unto civil power, have hitherto never failed to dishonor that profession, the world is full of examples, whereof I shall confine myself at the present unto two, the one of old, the other of New Rome. In old Rome, the patricians or nobility pretended to be the godly party, were questioned by the people for engrossing all the magistracies of that commonwealth, and had nothing to say why they did so. But quod nemo plebeus auspicia haberet, that magistracy required a kind of holiness which was not in the people. Plebs ad id maxima indignatione exarcit, quod auspicari tanquam invisi diis immortalibus negarentur posse, at which the people were filled with such indignation as had come to cutting of throats, if the nobility had not forthwith laid by the insolency of that plea, which nevertheless, when they had done, the people for a long time after continued to elect none other than patrician magistracies. The example of New Rome, in the rise and practice of the hierarchy, too well known to require any further illustration, is far more immodest. This hath been the course of nature, and when it hath pleased or shall please God to introduce anything that is above the course of nature, he will, as he hath always done, confirm it by miracle. For so in his prophecy of the reign of Christ upon earth he expressly promiseth, seeing that the souls of them that were beheaded for Jesus shall be seen to live and reign with him, which will be an object of sense, the rather because the rest of the dead are not to live again until the 1,000 years be finished, and it is not lawful for men to persuade us that a thing is, though there be no such object of our sense, which God hath told us shall not be until it be an object of our sense. The saintship of a people, as to government, consisteth in the election of magistrates, fearing God and hating covetousness, and not in their confining themselves, or being confined unto men of this or that party or profession. It consisteth in making the most prudent and religious choice that they can, but not in trusting unto men, but next God in their orders. Give us good men, and they will make us good laws, is the maxim of a demagogue. And through the alteration which is commonly perceivable in men, when they have power to work their own wills, exceeding fallible. But give us good orders, and they will make us good men, is the maxim of a legislator, and the most infallible in the politics. But these divisions, however there be some good men that look sadly on them, are trivial things. First, as to the civil concernment, because the government whereof this nation is capable, once seen, taketh in all interests. And secondly, as to the spiritual, because as pretense of religion hath always been turbulent in broken government, so where the government hath been sound and steady, religion hath never shown herself with any other face than that of her natural sweetness and tranquillity. Nor is there any reason why she should. Wherefore the errors of the people are occasioned by their governors. If they be doubtful of the way or wander from it, it is because their guides misled them, and the guides of the people are never so well qualified for leading by any virtue of their own, as by that of the government. The government of Oceana, as it stood at the time whereof we discourse, consisting of one single council of the people, to the exclusion of the king and of the lords, was called a parliament, howbeit the parliaments of the Teutons and of the Neustrians consisted, as hath been shown, of the king, lords, and commons. Wherefore this under an old name was a new thing, a parliament consisting of a single assembly, elected by the people and invested with the whole power of government, without any covenants, conditions, or orders whatsoever. So new a thing, that neither ancient nor modern prudence can show any avowed example of the like. And there is scarce anything that seemeth unto me so strange as that, whereas there was nothing more familiar with these counselors than to bring the scripture to the house. There should not be a man of them that so much as offered to bring the house unto the scripture, wherein, as hath been shown, is contained that original, wherefore all the rest of the commonwealths seem to be copies. Certainly, if Leviathan, who is surer of nothing than that of popular commonwealth consisteth but of one council, transcribed his doctrine out of this assembly, for him to except against Aristotle and Cicero for writing out of their own commonwealths was not so fair play. Or if the Parliament transcribed out of him, it had been an honor better due unto Moses. But where one of them should have an example, but from the other I cannot imagine, there being another of this kind that I can find in story, but the oligarchy of Athens, the 30 tyrants of the same, and the Roman decemvirs. For the oligarchy, Thucydides tells us that it was a senate or council of 400, pretending to be a balancing council of the people consisting of 5,000, but not producing them, wherein you have the definition of an oligarchy, which is a single council, both debating and resolving, dividing and choosing. And what that must come to was shown by the example of the girls, and is apparent through all experience. Wherefore the 30 set up by the Lacedaemonians were, when they had conquered Athens, are called tyrants by all authors, Leviathan only excepted, who will have them against all the world to have been an aristocracy, but for what reason I cannot imagine. These also, as void of any balance, having been void of that which is essential to every commonwealth, whether aristocratical or popular, except to be pleased with them in that by the testimony of Xenophon. They killed more men in 8 months than the Lacedaemonians had done in 10 years, oppressing the people, to use Sir Walter Raleigh's words, with all base and intolerable slavery. The usurped government of the decemvirs in Rome was of the same kind, wherefore, in the fear of God, let Christian legislators, setting the pattern given in the Mount on the one side, and these execrable examples on the other, know the right hand from the left, and so much the rather because those things which do not conduce to the good of the governed are fallacious, if they appear to be good for the governors. God is chastening, a people is accustomed to burn his rod. The empire of these oligarchies was not so violent as short, nor did they fall upon the people, but in their own immediate ruin. A council without a balance is not a commonwealth, but an oligarchy, and every oligarchy, except she be put to the defense of her wickedness, or power against some outward danger, is factious. Wherefore the errors of the people, being from their government, which maxim is the politics, bearing a sufficient testimony unto itself, is also proved by Machiavel. If the people of Oceana have been factious, the cause is apparent. But what remedy? In answer to this question, I come now to the army, of which the most victorious captain and incomparable patriot Ulphaus Megaletor was now general, who being a much greater master of the art, whereof I have made a rough draft in these preliminaries, had so sad reflections upon the ways and proceedings of the Parliament as cast him upon books, and all other means of diversion, among which he happened upon this place of Machiavel. Thrice happy is that people which chances to have a man able to give them such a government at once, as without alteration may secure them of their liberty, seeing it is certain that Lacedaemon, in observing the laws of Lycurgus, continued about 800 years without any dangerous tumult or corruption. My Lord General, as it is said of Themistocles that he could not sleep for the glory obtained by Miltiades, at the Battle of Marathon, took so new and deep impression at these words of the much greater glory of Lycurgus, that being on this side assaulted with the emulation of his illustrious object, on the other with the misery of the nation, which seemed, as it were ruined by his victory, to cast herself at his feet, he was almost wholly deprived of his natural rest, until the debate he had within himself came to a firm resolution, that the greatest advantages of a commonwealth are, first, that the legislator should be one man, and secondly, that the government should be made altogether, or at once. For the first, it is certain, saith Machiavel, that a commonwealth is seldom or never well turned or constituted, except it have been the work of one man, for which cause a wise legislator, and one whose mind is firmly set, not upon private but the public interest, not upon his posterity, but upon his country, may justly endeavor to get the sovereign power into his own hands. Nor shall any man that is master of reason blame such extraordinary means as in that case shall be necessary, that end proving no more than the constitution of a well-ordered commonwealth. The reason of this is demonstrable. For the ordinary means not failing, the commonwealth hath no need of a legislator, but the ordinary means failing, there is no recourse to be had but to such as are extraordinary. And whereas a book or a building hath not been known to attain perfection, if it had not had a sole author or architect, a commonwealth, as to the fabric of it, is of the like nature, and thus it may be made at once, in which there be great advantages. For a commonwealth made at once taketh her security at the same time she lendeth her money, trusteth not herself to the faith of men, but launcheth immediately forth into the empire of laws, and being set straight, bringeth the manners of her citizens unto her rule, whence followed that uprightness which was in Lacedaemon. But manners that are rooted in men bow the tenderness of a commonwealth, that are rooted, coming up by twigs unto their bent, whence followed the obliquity that was in Rome, and those perpetual repairs by the consuls, axes, and tribunes. Consuls and tribunes' hammers, which have never finished that commonwealth but in destruction.